If this was a television show, I suppose I'd begin by saying that the cast and crew have been out on one of those creative periods, working hard at thinking of new ways to discuss our programming for the fall schedule. In some respects, I think that's what it's been like this summer, as we've been watching the situation unfold here in Washington, thinking about new ways to discuss what's actually happening here. So, one of the things I thought it would be nice would be to change the title of this presentation from This Week in Washington to a new title that reflects the times that we're in. So, from now on, I'm going to refer to my update with you as From Washington. Really? Because so much of what's going on here is somewhat hard to believe, even though I know many of you see these events on your evening news. As you know, our Congress is currently on recess, or some would actually call it a vacation. They plan to be out most of the rest of this month and some of the early part of September. As a matter of fact, there are some prognosticators and people who examine these things and say that Congress only has 9 full working days left before the end of the fiscal year. What does that mean to what we're concerned with and the concerns of the nation? Basically, it tells us that within this very short time framework, Congress must enact every appropriations bill for the government, must do something about our spending situation relative to the debt and the financing that is available. It must authorize several important pieces of legislation. It has to try to consider a comprehensive immigration bill, and there has been talk among some of the Republican members of Congress about the need to do a complete overhaul of the nation's entitlement programs. How this will be done in a 9-day period or even a longer one would be very hard to understand, especially since none of this work has managed to be accomplished so far. As a matter of fact, again, as you know from watching the news, you've seen some very bitter partisanship played out here as it has been played out since the beginning of the year. It's very doubtful that Congress will be able to agree on some of the more important issues, and there is grave concern on our part that they may in fact disrupt the appropriation cycles that are scheduled to begin in the new fiscal year. Last year, at this time, it was hoped that by putting these issues like the sequester together, it would help enable Congress to reach a settlement on these important issues. Rather than that, what we received was the very worst possible outcome, a complete breakdown in the situation that led to the sequester and many across the board budget cuts. Before they adjourned, Congress attempted to pass a transportation and HUD bill that includes most of the funding for our transportation programs and our human services ones. In the House, the bill's reductions were so severe that the Republicans could not get a majority of their own members to pass it out of the committee. In the Senate, the Democrats, seeking to maintain funding for critical programs, could not muster enough votes to overcome the filibuster that the Republicans used there to delay the bill. The inability to settle these issues because of the financial situation makes it very hard, again, to understand how this will be resolved in time for us as we approach the end of the fiscal year. There's not much more we can do about this situation for the time being, so we're going to continue to watch it and see what develops, and we'll try to give you a heads up on the situation as it continues to develop. As that's going forward, I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about what we plan to do in the coming fall season. As you know, we spent time at Expo and at your last board meeting discussing the important ways that we needed to craft a long-term message to take our case to Congress and to the people to help us achieve the kind of balanced investment program we need for community and public transit. Our work at Tampa was excellent in helping us forge the kind of issues that we talked about further at Expo. The teams that we had there put together some very good information for us that we should be trying to put together for your review at our upcoming September meeting. Basically, what we've learned so far is the best way to communicate our message and concern is to turn it into a local message that reflects the success, the challenges, and the opportunities that local transit people provide in meeting the needs of the communities in which they live and the people they serve. Very often, we were surprised at the great stories that came out of those discussions and how they would fit so well into explaining the role that community and public transportation plays today and can play in the future. I hope that you recently had a chance to notice that we distributed our current issue of Digital CTAA magazine. This issue deals with the stories collected by Scott and Rich in their passage across Minnesota. As you know, since our next expo will be in St. Paul, we wanted the next issue of CTAA magazine to reflect on what was going on there so that people could get some idea of what would be happening in the Minnesota area and maybe encourage them to want to visit with some of our members and friends there who are doing such extraordinary work. We believe that these stories provide the kind of format that will be useful to us in explaining the way we do our work so well with such limited resources, and to reflect upon how much more we could do if we had the additional help and stability that a long-term bill can produce. And speaking of stability, despite the fact that we only have a 16-month authorization, I would say that there has been very little progress in meeting the groundwork that should be started by now as we help to prepare for that new reauthorization. Several of us had a chance to meet with members of Congress over the last several weeks, and I'm concerned that their idea on MAP 21's reauthorization or replacement will be an attempt to punt that down the road further with additional continuing resolutions because the basic issues that we saw last year and this year remain unresolved. Everyone recognizes that we have a greater need for investment. No one is willing to make that investment. Several weeks ago, President Obama released a plan for increased activities in infrastructure to provide greater support to the transportation sector, including public transportation. I regret that this was not received well by the Congress, and at this stage it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So as we approach the end of this fiscal year, that's one more thing to put on our list of unfinished work. I'll be in touch again shortly, within the next week I hope. Maybe we'll have more information, and maybe we won't have to begin that one by saying, from Washington, really, this is the best we can do. Thanks for now. I hope you've had a productive summer so far. If there are issues and ideas that you want to talk to me about, feel free to let me know. Although I've been on the circuit speaking about our program, I have one more engagement along those lines tomorrow. I'll be journeying down to Fredericksburg, Virginia for a meeting of the Community Transportation Association of Virginia. This will be my first chance to actually attend a state association meeting held within 15 minutes of where I live. So I'm looking forward to a new kind of way to address a meeting without having to get on a plane or travel very far, but right in my own backyard. So until we talk again, thanks, best wishes, and have a great week. Bye for now.